wale watakaokuja wavione. Yes, good evening everyone. I hope we are all good. As we are starting our today's session, remember, I would like to welcome you in our MHT Mental Health Tuesday session, and it is always a privilege to come together in this space like this, where we can engage in meaningful conversation about issues that always impact in our daily life, and we often overlook them. So as we dwell in our today's session, remember, we are going to talk much about matters of stress and understanding them and the cost that we are undergoing, because stress, as we all know, is an unavoidable part of our life. And here today in our session, we have our own speaker, Madam Yvonne Gache, who will take us through our today's session. And I would like to take this time to welcome her so that she can introduce herself and tell us who she is, what she's doing, before we proceed with our today's session. Madam Yvonne, karibu.
Asante. So kwa majina naitwa Yvonne Gache na natokea Nairobi. Nafaa kusema nini ingine? What was the other question?
It's just part of introduction, who you are, where you're coming from, and what you are doing, so that we all know our guest speaker and her capacity.
Sawa, asante. So Kiswahili yangu si mzuri kama yako, so I will switch to English at this point. So like I said, my name is Yvonne Gache, and I live and work in Nairobi. I am a counseling psychologist by training, a critical psychologist by practice. Critical, not because I'm critical of psychology and its practices, but critical because when, as a critical psychologist, you have the opportunity to look at the systems and the structures that send people into ill mental health. And that is what I do on a day-to-day basis. I look at what are these systems, what are these structures that make people chronically stressed and do not support individuals' well-being. So I am here as a friend and a supporter of Samba Sport Youth Agenda in my capacity as a psychologist and a board member of Samba Sport Youth Agenda. Back to you in studio.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Yvonne. I'm Mahmoud Ali. I'll be your today's moderator. Don't forget that in here, I have my co-moderator, none other than Monaisha Kwania. We'll be taking you through our today's session. Remember, this is an 141st session since we started this mental health session. Back to my fellow listeners, remember, if you have any questions, don't forget or don't hesitate. Just put it in the call chat, and I'm going to read it for our speaker so that she can respond to it. If it's a question, if you have a thought and input, feel free also to share it there. And also, we'll give you a time to share whatever you have if you raise up your hand. Maybe if I come back to you, Madam Yvonne, you know, as we are talking about understanding the cause of stress, maybe most of us, we don't really understand what is stress. Can you please tell us what is stress?
Thank you, Mahmoud. And my greetings and best wishes to Monaisha, your co-moderator. So what is stress? Stress is something that we experience in our lives every day. Every day we experience stress in one way or another. But when it is a strain, when it is a mental strain, so when we are experiencing day-to-day life, unajua asubuhi nitaamka, nitaoga, nitaenda kama ni skuli. Hiyo siku unaamka asubuhi, ukifungua mfereji hakuna maji. ukienda kupika chai maybe inamwagika, it boils over, alafu that's the same day yenye ukienda kuchukua kitabu unapata maybe kama kuna mtoto mdogo nyumbani alikojolea homework. So it's one thing after another and it takes a mental strain on your body, but kama on your brain, so that can be stressful. But also ukiamka asubuhi ufungue mfereji na ulikuwa unataka kuoga na upate hakuna maji, that can also be stressful. So stress is anything that puts strain, that puts strain, mental or emotional, in particular circumstances for us. What I will say though, Mahmoud, is that stress is not inherently bad. And stress sometimes is good, and it is also the body's natural response to demand or challenges. So stress si mbaya siku zote. Kuna siku masaa zingine stress ni mzuri, because maybe you're stressed, unapanga kwenda unafanya exam.
Sorry for that. Muhammad, kindly help us with that. Thank you. We are sorry for that. Now we are in a 21st century where we are more digitalized and people might come in our session. Sorry for that. Back to you, Madam. Ete Okon, kindly huyo mblock kabisa if possible. Yes, back to you, Madam Yvonne. We are sorry for that.
Mahmoud, would you say that was a stressful moment?
I could relate.
So, for example, Ekona akiingia kwa meeting na ana threaten because the next hiyo video ingeturn bad very fast. That can be a stressful moment. So unaweza kuwa uko hapo unashanga stress ni nini? Stress ni this exact moment imetufanyikia hapa. And it's not always bad. Stress is sometimes good, because unaweza kuwa maybe una prepare for the birth of a new child, inakuwa stressful, but mtoto akishazaliwa, mtoto ako na afya, hiyo stress inakuwa it was worth it. Saa zingine unapanga harusi, uko na stress, stress inakusaidia ku lose weight, unaka bas maridadi siku yako harusi, hiyo stress ilikuwa worth it, na unafanya harusi na ndoa yako inakuwa successful. So that by itself means that stress is not always bad. Stress is good because it shows us what our limits are, and so we can expand and practice and become good at things. But also stress, once it happens one too many times, it becomes chronic and can be bad. Back to you, Mahmoud.
Thank you so much, Madam Yvonne, for that elaboration. I think for now, someone even decided to come in and give us an example of stress in realia. So we can say it's a good one that we have learned from him, but it was a bad one because of the system, since we are recording and we have lost a part. Now that you have taken us through these two scenarios in terms of stress, the positive one and the negative one, why do you think we are talking about the cause of this stress?
Why do I think?
Why are we talking about cost of stress?
Okay, we are talking about the cost of stress because stress impacts every aspect of our lives, our health, our relationships, our productivity. And if we do not discuss the costs, then sometimes it is lost on us to understand how stress impacts individuals, how stress impacts families, and how stress impacts communities. Ushaiona kuna wakati unatembea kwa streets na watu wamekasirika, we hata ukikanyaga mtu unaweza nyongwa, na ni kitu kawaida, ni ya kusamehewa. But this is why we are talking about the cost of stress, because we need to understand how it impacts our health, our relationships, our productivity, for us as individuals, as families, and as communities. And then this awareness that we now get from this discussion empowers us to take proactive and constructive steps to manage stress and reduce its burden, especially for young people, like the people in this space, who sometimes face unique pressures and might not always have an outlet.
Madam Yvonne?
Yes.
I thought maybe we have lost you.
No, I just finished. Sorry, I'll say back to you.
That's fine. So since you've taken us among the cause of this stress, we have understood the matters of stress. Back to you, my fellow listeners. We have been told that this is our daily challenges that we encounter, and normally to whatever we were expecting. Maybe unataka kuoga, umefika mfereji haina maji. These are some of the things that we usually undergo in our daily lives. Feel free to share some experience in your culture for the purpose of others also to learn. Maybe there's such a scenario that happened. You can also share to us, this and this happened to me, and this is the way that I was able to manage that. You can also tell us how, or maybe if there was a certain stress that caused you in your life. Feel free also to share it there, and we will be reading it for the benefit of the whole platform. Maybe if I come back to you, Madam Yvonne, we understand this stress in different perceptions. Maybe if you can tell us what are the types of stress and what are their causes? Types of stress and their causes.
So I would say there's many types of stress, really. But let me go with like 4 major types. So the first one is short-term stress. Uko na presentation unafanya, ama wewe ndio umeambiwa sasa Mental Health Tuesday ni yako, wewe ndio utakuwa una come up na topics. Every Monday, ikifika Monday unasikia tumbo joto, makasirika, uko na wasiwasi because maybe haujajipanga vizuri. But ikifika siku ya Mental Health Tuesday, discussion inafanywa na Mental Health Tuesday inaenda haraka, that hour flies by, hata hujui iliishaje, and you're done. And then you're back to being your normal self. That's short-term stress. Inaitwa acute stress. So acute stress ni ile stress yenye si long term. Ni tu umeenda kuoga asubuhi hakuna maji. But ukirudi jioni maji imerudi. That's acute stress. It arises from immediate challenges. Umeenda kuona mshikaji wako, rudishiana neno moja mbili, mmekorofeshana. Lakini mkikaa chini mresolve, mambo inarudi sawa. Hiyo ni acute stress. Then kuna chronic stress. Example ya chronic stress ni, for example, vitu zenye zinafanyika over a long period of time, So tuseme for example, unaishi kwa neighborhood yenye ama unaishi kwa neighborhood yenye haina amenities. So hakuna maji, hakuna stima, hauwezi hata ukinunua maji haiwezi fika nyumbani kwa sababu punda atakuja kama barabara ni mbaya, punda akikuja maji inatingika karibu yote inaenda kumwagika, so maji ikifika ni nusu. Ukijaribu kutransport maji kuleta kwa kijiji, unapatana na watu wenye wanakuitisha hongo ya kupita hapo barabarani. So there's many things that are happening and happening over a long period of time. Yani, this has been your childhood, this has been, now you're an adult, unasema mimi huku nitahama, nikipata tu kazi, lakini pia hakuna pesa ya kwenda shule. Hiyo ni chronic stress, where it's constantly one thing after another over a long period of time. You know? And sometimes these are financial issues, there are family conflicts, vitu kama hizo. Then kuna episodic stress. So episodic stress ni stress yenye inafanyika regularly kwa sababu ya hectic lifestyle ama constant worrying. Tuseme for example, unafanya kazi ambayo watu wengi wanakutegemea. Na unajua I have to deliver on this, I have to deliver on this, I have to deliver on this. And if I don't, unafeel ni kama utakuwa umelet down watu wengi. So hiyo episodic stress every time, maybe ikifika around ile wakati watu wanalipwa salary, saa zile watu wanaenjoy kuchukua mshahara, wewe usually the entire month unakuanga na stress kwa sababu you need to make sure that everybody has a salary. So hiyo ni episodic stress. Then kuna traumatic stress. Na traumatic stress inatokana na major life events zenye zinatuacha na kiwewe. So traumatic stress, unaweza kuwa umekuwa in a violent situation, unaweza kuwa umewitness, unaweza kuwa umekuwa kwa accident, natural disaster, unaweza kuwa wewe ni first responder. Na all you do is listen to these traumatic stories. So in turn, you get traumatized yourself. Na hii traumatic stress na easy types, all types of stress, the acute, the chronic, the episodic, na the traumatic stress, ina cause a lot of personal health issues, relationship issues, na ina cause also how you relate with your environment pia inabadilika na your community. Mahmoud?
Yes, Madam Yvonne, there are two questions here from the culture. I think they are in line with whatever you've been telling us about the types and the causes of this stress. There's a question from our brother Charles asking, when exactly does stress graduate into depression? And then we have also here Salim Suleiman Mbui, who is also asking, how can we manage chronic stress? Maybe you can react on that before we proceed. Madam Yvonne, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mahmoud. Charles, so when exactly does stress graduate into depression? I think saa zile itapita acute stress, ikitoka from acute stress iende ifike chronic stress, alafu ikitoka chronic stress iende ianze kukua kama traumatic stress. And why I say that is because it ends up present, first of all, in ways that it prevents you from doing your day-to-day activities. So when you're so stressed, na saa zingine stress watu wanasema ni depression, ndio msongamano wa mawazo wa Swahili in the room.
Msongo.
Oh, sorry. Msongo wa mawazo ndio hiyo ni nini? Ni depression ama ni stress?
Ni stress.
Thank you. Thank you, Mwachausa. So when your thoughts are too many na zinakusonga, I'm sorry kama ya Kiswahili. So when your thoughts are too much and too many, and you are constantly thinking, and it prevents you from being able to do your day-to-day activities. Sayo, you know that you're slowly slipping into depression. The other thing you can start to feel, and it's not really depression, it's in almost a depressive state, because it could be in and out. You know, some days you feel better than others. So saa zile uko na low concentration, uko na disrupted sleep patterns, saa zingine usikii kukula, na uko na very low energy, uko na guilt, hopelessness, saa zingine even thoughts about death, you know? And when you're starting to feel this way, a sense of overwhelm, saa hiyo haujaingia depression straight, unaingia kwanza acute depression. So inakuwa kama a depressive phase where you start to feel hii haibambi, you know, and you just feel meh. But then it's important that we know that si vizuri kila wakati kujipatia diagnosis, kusema niko na depression ama niko na nini. Afadhali useme na feel ni kama niko na depressive symptoms, because what they are is just a set of symptoms, and maybe you can deal with one after another, even without the stressor going away, na utakuwa sawa. I hope it may make sense, Chalo. And then kulikuwa na hiyo question ya second ya how do we manage chronic stress? Saa zingine hauwezi toa stressor. So stressor ni ile kitu yenye inakufanya unakuwa na stress. Hiyo example nimepeana ya hiyo kijiji, for example. Kwa hiyo kijiji yenye unaishi pali, ukiweka maji kwa punda inaenda ikitingika mpaka maji inamwagika karibu yote. Alafu ukifika katikati ya kijiji kuna hawa watu wako hapo wanaongoja walipe ndio uingize hiyo maji yako nusu ndani ya kijiji ama wataua punda wako. So at the end of the day, and this is all the life that you've known, it becomes that your structure yenye kwa hiyo society haiwezi change, but wewe unaweza learn cope na your stress. So sometimes the stressor might remain, but then how do you cope with the stress? So kama ni lack of sleep, how do you then have sleep hygiene? Kama mko kikundi ya watu wenye mnapitia the same thing, how do you come together, debrief, and hold space for one another? You talk it out, mnazungumza, mnaelewana, mnasema unaona, this is what we are going through, and you hold space for one another and you grow together. The other way of managing chronic stress is really by maintaining great physical health. So making sure that kama ni exercise, una exercise, kama ni proper diet, ile ya protein, carbohydrates, yenye tulikuwa tunambiwa vitamins, kama uko above 30 unakunywa supplements, and so on and so forth. Ni hizo vitu. Ni physical health, taking care of your mental health, building community around you, and then starting to take care of the symptoms that you find that zina crop up as a result of the chronic stress. So kama ulali vizuri, finding a way to have a sleep routine that is healthy for you. I hope you mejibu swali yako, Salim. Mahmoud?
Thank you so much, Madam Yvonne. I see Charles is acknowledging that he is satisfied with the question and the answer that you revert back to him. Thank you so much, Charles, for your question, and thank you so much, Madam Yvonne, for taking us at large and explaining it to us regarding the question of Charles. Nakumbuka tukiwa tunasoma bado tunasoma, lakini tukiwa tunasoma ulikuwa unapata mwalimu anakuja darasani, ndio mara ya kwanza mnakutana naye, lakini katika kuwa ni kipindi cha kwanza mnakutana naye, hataki kuelewa, anatandika yoyote anayemuona, atafuta makosa madogo madogo, hujaandika jina kwenye cover, amekutandika, cover limekatika kidogo, amekutandika, kitabu kimeanguka, amekutandika, alafu mwisho wa siku amsikia amekuita kando, anakuambia pole sana, unajua haya maisha, nilikotoka asubuhi na nilipofika saa hii ni mambo mawili tofauti. Ambapo hiyo ni suala zima la mental health ambalo limekuwa likimsumbua, especially when you're talking about the emotional and maybe the traumatic type of a stress. So we are really grateful that now we can relate to what has been happening to some of us, or maybe to people who are around us regarding the types of stress. Maybe if you could tell us why is stress a burden in our daily lives, Madam Yvonne? Why do you think stress is a burden in our daily lives?
Thank you for that question, Mahmoud. I think stress becomes a burden in our daily life because it affects us, especially physically. You find mtu analala hata 7 hours, 8 hours, na bado anaamka amechoka. Saa zingine unapata mtu mmoja analala 8 hours, mwingine analala 10 hours, mwingine analala 12 hours, wote wanaamka wamechoka. Hiyo ni stress. Wengine hawalali kabisa. Hiyo pia ni stress. Alafu kuna magonjwa. Unagonjeka, unaenda hospitali, unasema naumwa, mwili yote inaniuma, siwezi, and the doctors can't find anything wrong with you. That's stress. Stress also becomes a burden because emotionally, it can lead us into depression, like Charlo had said. You know, it can give us anxiety. It can make us socially awkward, and it can strain our relationships. It can change how we see ourselves, you know, because if we are constantly anxious, we are constantly fatigued, socially we have strained relationships, emotionally we have anxiety and depression, and we are sick and we are tired and you don't know what to do. You find yourself isolated. You find yourself having very low self-esteem where you once thought greatly of yourself. Financially, it impacts you. So it becomes a burden, you know. It impacts your productivity. It adds to your medical expenses, and it overall reduces the quality of life, and it actually limits people's potential. Mahmoud?
Nangoja pia nisikie moja ukiniambia it also affects the performance of the right in terms of conjugal, because hapo pia huwa kuna kuwaga na shida, but nimeona umeibana sana.
Kweli Mahmoud, it does impact sexual performance, not always on the negative side. So ikianza kukua acute, inaweza fanya mtu akuwe na risky sexual behavior pale ako kila mahali na kila mtu, but also over time unaweza pata when you're getting now chronically stressed, the sex drive inaenda chini kabisa, and this person now cannot perform. And if it's a man, they can't perform, and if it's a woman, she constantly has a headache. Hata huwezi mguza, ni kama unamrepulse. So it's one of the two. It's either when it's hypersexuality, it's an issue, and again also when it's hypo, when it goes very low, pia ni issue. Sijui kama umeridhika Mahmoud?
Wameridhika, tumeridhika. Yes, back to you, my fellow listeners. For whoever has a question, feel free to put it on the call chat, and if you have an input or maybe kuna kitu labda changizo unataka kuitoa, ama labda una maono, kuwa huru, unaweza kuliuliza pale katika call chat yetu, ama pia unaweza kunyoosha mkono ukatupatia some of your ideas. Naona hapa tuko na wakongwe pia ambao wanaweza tusaidia, kina brother Jalim naona wako hapa na kina Sefas wako hapa. Kweni huru, uwanja huu ni wetu. From the call chat, Charles Kialo anasema, how exactly can you identify stress in children and how can a parent deal with it? For instance, I have seen a child get home from school and just breaks down so badly. This is so serious, Madam Yvonne. Maybe if you can enlighten us on this.
Yeah, thank you, Charlo, for sharing this. And I'm wondering, when the child comes home and breaks down, are you after that having a conversation with them about what exactly is happening in school? Because children, unlike adults, especially children under 8, or even I would say for some under 10, really don't know how to mask and will be very forthright with you, kukuelezea, this is what is going on, or will present in their behavior. You will be able to pick what is going on. So usually, how can you identify stress in children? By observing their behavior, maybe not so much their words. If it's a forthright child, atakwambia mami ama daddy ama auntie, this is what is going on, na atakuelezea. But when you start to notice in children regression, yani ni kama anarudi nyuma developmentally, vitu alikuwa anaweza kujifanyia, they can no longer do it. Mtoto alikuwa na concentrate, haizi concentrate anymore. Mtoto alikuwa anaweza kujifeed, sasa kujifeed imekuwa kama ni shida. It takes them long to eat. Mtoto alikuwa ameacha kukojoa kitandani, anarudi kukojoa. Small things. Mtoto alikuwa anacheza nje, anakuwa withdrawn. All these things, if you sum them up, you can then find out where the problem is. You can identify. And after you identify, I think the first thing to do is to have the conversation with the child. Si kumshautia ama kumwelezea, kumwambia, like pinning them down na kutaka kujua ni nini, like na ukali, by being friendly and creating that space where they feel safe enough to talk to you and to share with you what actually is happening in their lives, and to ask the right question. So usiulize zile question yenye atajibu yes or no, or ask an open-ended question, or let them just share, and then from Kenya wanasema wewe ndio utapick out the things to ask. And I hope, Charlo, that this child is also being supported by not just the parents, but also the school. So the other thing you can do is also just go to school. If you can't find out from the child, is go to school and ask what's going on and try and get to the bottom of it. I hope that is helpful for you. But anybody else in the audience, kuna mtu yote mwenye ako kwa hii call anaweza kuwa na words of advice for Charlo. He asks, how can you identify stress in children and how can a parent deal with it? For instance, I have seen a child get home from school and just break down so badly. Huyo mtoto amechoka. Hata sijui kama anamkanga 5 kwenda shule.
I see there's a reason hand here. Maybe we could give him a chance also for the hand up. Karibu sana, Muhammad.
Thank you, Mahmoud, and thanks, Yvonne. I think Yvonne has broken it down very well, and I like Yvonne's presentation because the pace is so much that she makes sure you have understood. She's not speaking very quickly, and she speaks casually, but with the heavy content. So I hope it is very helpful to the listeners. The the subject of understanding stress in children and also how to help, I think, is the subject of the day. Different from adults who have money, have network, have freedom to go elsewhere, all over. For a child, remember, they don't have money of on their own. So if they are battling with stress, they do not have money that could maybe could give them the leeway to do things that would numb their pain. So it's very difficult for them. Second is they have a routine from school home. So they cannot say from school, I'm going to the beach, or I'm going to have a dance, or I'm going to listen to music, because when they come home, they are subject to the decisions of the adults in the house. So if they have stress, they suffer more because they do not have a loophole or a vent, an easy vent where they can deal with their stress. The other thing about children is that they cannot make certain decisions. If a constant stress is coming from a battling couple, the mother and father are fighting all the time. She loves them both, but if the father hits the mother, there's no way they can come in between, and they cannot tell the mother, please shut up because you're going to be hit, and they cannot tell the father, because don't hit her again, because last time you hit her she limped. So they bottle all that stress, and they cannot say, because they fear that if they say, they become part of the trouble in the house. So it's very difficult for children to manage. So for an adult, is basically to be very keen. And if you're an adult who's a father or a brother who understands the routine of a young one, then it becomes easy, because the moment they change, you realize. If they are so bubbly every time they come from school, and all of a sudden they come from school forlorn, it's a telltale sign that something might be wrong. If when they came home, they'll tell you, I'm hungry, the school was amazing, but I'm hungry, is there any snack or drink or whatever? That's their habit. But when they come now, they don't ask for anything, and if you offer them anything, they're like, no, I am nimeshiba, or I don't feel like eating it. Then that tells you something is wrong. When they like watching cartoon or they like playing with their toys, but when they come now, they close the door behind their room, that tells you something is wrong. So if there's a combination of these observations, then be very careful and offer to support. And offering to support is not forceful. Build their trust by being nice, because probably they are struggling with something very sensitive that they cannot speak. These days, so many boys out there are being sodomized. And you can imagine a boy who is religious telling a big brother or a father that he was sodomized. It's such a topic, so heavy, that it's very difficult for them to break down. And so if they are undergoing such kind of a stressful period, all they need is love, care, and trust. They can open up if they trust that you are not going to judge them and you are not going to hurt them. But you cannot handle stress in children by being too hard on them, or being too harsh on them, or being too quick that you want them to say stuff and they have to say it now. They will not tell you. And nowadays, there have been situations where young children, age 9 and below, have decided to take their own lives because the stress is very overwhelming for them. Mahmoud and Yvonne.
Thank you so much, Muhammad, for that input regarding the question of Bwana Charles, and for the betterment of all members in the platform. I think it was a good insight. I see also here we have Brother Sefa saying that there was a hand from Madam Abigail. I don't know if she's still on. Yes, Abigail, you can have a moment.
Thank you, Mahfoud. Um, I just want to support what Yvonne and Mr. Muhammad said about dealing with stress with kids. From my own experience as a young mom to an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, I would love to share also my insight. Maybe it's gonna help. Looking at both of my kids, my 8 can say whenever she's stressed, she'll be like, "Mom, I'm going through 1, 2, 3." But the young one, he still can't express. And for the last 2 to 3 weeks, my kid was like, "I don't want to go to school." Like, no. Whenever it's on a Saturday, he starts to ask, "Is tomorrow school? Are we going to school?" "I don't want." On a Sunday, he'll not eat. He will be stressed up. He'll be like, "Are we going to school?" Whenever he sees me ironing, he freaks out. He started peeing in the bed, you know. So there was some issues I could see, and he could not tell me specific what was happening. But then coming from school, he'll start crying, "No, no way, I don't want to go." So I was like, what is the problem? What has changed? And given that I know him, I know his weakness, and maybe the teacher has not yet understood him, I had to show up for him. Went to the school, talked to the teacher, and I was like, "Hey, these are his weakness. He learns so slowly, and give him time, be patient with him, and maybe there'll be some different." That is what I thought, because at his age, he still can't identify what stresses him, you know. So when we had that discussion with the teacher, things started changing. And just today, I was so excited, him telling me, "Teacher told me that I'm a good boy." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, you are a good boy." So he kept on telling me, "I now know how to read." And I'm like, "Yes." So the teacher also realized that she can't go with the pace that she wants on this kid. And so um thinking about it now, he's so excited to go to school. And also on my side, I have made it deliberately to pick him from school. Like, I will not send anyone else, I will show up for him. So that was another thing, because at this age, at this small age, like, they can't even identify, they don't know, they just feel like, "Oh, the school is another jail, we don't want to be there." Actually, it was like, "When you cry at school, our teacher gives you Panadol." And I was like, "What is Panadol?" Then he told me, "Panadol is a cane." So you see, like, he's still at the edge whereby he can't even express whatever he's feeling. And just as Yvonne and not Manaja and Muhammad has said, that we need to be aware, we need to show them, we need to be there for them, is something that when they grow up, they will really appreciate. So that is something I thought I should share, and maybe it's gonna help one or two of parents who are dealing with stressful kids. Thank you.
Wow, that was an amazing experience, and we are really grateful for that insight, because indeed it has touched the heart of all the listeners here, and it has enlightened them a lot. Maybe if I get back to the call chat before I go back to Madam Yvonne with my very last question, uh, there is a there was a thought here from Madam Lina saying, in addition, chronic stress can also caused by terminal illness like cancer. Then Cephas came in and said, children often break down when they have excessive homework with no time or very little time to play at school and at home. Then Madam Yvonne support whatever input that Cephas gave us, and she said, very true, Cephas, overwhelming children is very true. Rose Rehema, we are grateful for that, and Monaisha has replied to you. And then we also have a thought here, the stress we carry now, most of it was inherited from attitude we brought forward from nasty experience in our upbringing. So we are talking about the type of stress that we said a traumatic one. And then Monaisha is back here saying, don't worry, Abigail, I was saying it in spirit. Hawa ni mama wawili wamepatana. Asante. Charles is back here saying one last one and I promise hii ndio swali la mwisho. Don't worry, feel free to ask as many questions as possible. The ones that will be able to address them we will. There is a narrative among us that boys shouldn't cry no matter what men are supposed to. Kaa ngumu. It's something that we grow with even as we become adults. Could it be possible that it's the reason men don't find it easy to share when they are going through stuff? I think this is the same as what Muhammad was saying there up, talking about inherited from attitude we brought forward from nasty experience in our upbringing. But within time, we are going also to address that. Telling a child you are a hero, you are a gem, you are amazing can actually change the trajectory positively in their life. Tell them, wewe ndio Superman, wewe ndio Batman. Babji, asante sana, wacha nijaribu Kiswahili. Kazu saying yes, let's raise boys with as much gentleness as we raise girls. That's indeed good. Babji, sijali tutakuwa na klasi ya Kizungu na Kiswahili. Thank you so much for those insights, my fellow listeners. Maybe if I get back to Madam Yvonne for our last question, and maybe you give us any particular advice on managing this stress, all these types of stress that we have. You can give us some of advices that how we gonna manage this stress. Back to you, Madam Yvonne.
Asante Mahmud. Nitajaribu kuchanganya Kiingereza na Kiswahili kwa manufaa ya watu kama Babu Great One. Amesema Kizungu idilutiwe kidogo na ameandika in English. So I would like to answer Charlo's question first. And I agree with Kadzo. Boys should be raised with as much gentleness as we raise girls. But further than that is the fact that we tell boys not to cry because we don't want boys to show their sad emotions. But what I've come to understand over time is that men generally are bad with showing happiness as they are with showing sadness. A man cannot be completely, absolutely show you like their complete joy because they also cannot show you their complete sadness. It takes a lot of vulnerability to be as happy as one can be. The same way it takes a lot of sadness to be as sad as one can be. What can I leave you with in terms of managing stress? The first and most important is building support systems, having people to fall back on. So a community around you. Hata kama hii community ni wewe, wazazi wako, ndugu zako. Kama ndugu zako ni wakuzaliwa nao, wakuwapata marafiki wenye wamekuja kwa mandugu. Kama ni wewe na mke wako for now, alafu nyinyi mta build another support of friends, and so on and so forth. The other way is to set boundaries. And boundaries are not set after the fact. So sitasema ati mimi boundary yangu ni masaa yangu ya kazi ikifika siendelee na kazi. Lakini nasema hiyo saa zile tu nimeambiwa keti mpaka 5:30 ufanye hii kazi yenye imecome up. Boundary how set after the fact. Boundary una set before. Unasema these are my boundaries, these are my working days, hizi siku zingine tafadhali mimi siku kama si ya kazi sitakuwa available mkini contact for work. So kazi boundaries zinakuwa set beforehand. So build a support system, set boundaries, and then practice daily stress management. Kama ni kuzungumza na watu, kama ni kuandika journal, kama ni prayer, so spirituality, spiritual practices. Kama ni mindfulness, kama ni breathing exercises, kama ni dance, kama ni physical activities. practice daily stress management. Usiongoje tu mpaka stress ifike mwisho alafu it boils over alafu ndio una deal nayo. So build support systems, set boundaries, practice daily stress management. Na ikishindikana kabisa, kuja tutafute wana psycholojia, counselors, watu wa community wenye wanaweza keti wa hold space na wa kuhold space. Come look for us. Mahmoud.
Thank you so much Madam Yvonne. Asante sana, niliambiwa nitumie Kiswahili kidogo. Labda turudi pale katika call chat yetu. Naona kuna Madam Lina amesema appreciating a child after doing something good, it can be a good therapy for children. Nakumbuka tukiwa katika session yetu ya last Tuesday, mzungumzaji wetu alituambia katika kila kitu ambacho unakifanya ukikikamilisha, basi hakikisha unafanya kitu cha furaha ama cha faraja ku appreciate kile kitu ambacho umekikamilisha. Vile vile nikinukuu na usemi wa Madam Lina, maanisha kuwa hata yule mtoto atakapofanya kile kitu japokuwa ni kidogo, lakini unapomappreciate ama unapompatia ile good motive, ana appreciate, na hata kesho ukimwambia akifanye atakuwa anakifanya akijua wazi kuwa nikimaliza I'll be called a superhero. That's amazing. Muda wetu umeyoyoma. Labda nikimrudisha Madam Yvonne tupatie closing remarks before I adjourn our today's session in a few. Madam Yvonne.
Thank you, Mahmoud. I would say even meetings like this, a place where you can hear Abigail share alafu una realize, si mi peke yangu. And then Chalo anasema, this is my last question. Na sayo unasema, at least kuna watu wengine pia wanakapitia kama mimi. You feel that there's other people who are going through the same human experience. Humanize each other's journeys. Hiyo ndio kenye naweza sema. Pale wote utapata chance ya kukutana na watu and to share and to speak and to hold space for one another. Do that as often as you can. Thank you, Mahmoud. Thank you, Mwanaisha and Mwachausa and the entire Samba Sport Youth Agenda team that's here, even the board members who are here. Really, really grateful for the fact that this is still going on. I am very, very proud to be associated with Samba Sport.
Asante sana, Madam Yvonne. Thank you, Madam Yvonne, for your incredible insights. Your expertise has truly deepened our understanding of the cause of stress and the importance of managing it proactively. And to everyone who joined us today, let us remember that mental health is a journey. The cost of ignoring stress is far greater than the effort required to address it. So please, let's embrace it. And I say thank you all and see you in the next session of Mental Health Tuesday. Stay safe and take care of your mental well-being and those who are around you. Remember, we always have this session every Tuesday starting from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And for more and more, we have our recordings back there in YouTube. Find just write Samba Sport Youth Agenda and you'll find our videos. Like, share, and follow for more and more about Mental Health Tuesday. See you next time, inshallah. Good night. Bye-bye.